call the meeting. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order for January 20th, 2015 of the Menlo Park Fire Protection District 4. Roll call.
Director Slaughter.
Here.
Director Polly. Present. Director Ianson.
Here.
Director Perkovic.
Here.
And Director Bernstein.
Present.
Deb Clark.
Great. So we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to just let everyone know that there was no reportable action from the closed session today. And I'll take public comment number 2 if there's any. Okay, so then we will close public comment number 2. And the next item on the agenda is a report from the Menlo Park Firefighters Benevolent Association. Okay. Any report from the Benevolent?
Yes, first I just want to say hi, for those of you that didn't know or recognize me, I'm Tony Trinella, and I'm the new president of the association.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Benevolencies, we had a great Christmas. We had our teddy bear giveaway, and we had enough donations to stockpile probably enough for teddy bear trees next year as well. And the giveaway at St. Anthony's, we had a record number of participants, and again, stockpiles galore. So it was a good Christmas. Our next benevolency will be the building together. Those dates will be to be determined. And that'll be the next thing.
Great, thank you,
Thank you.
Tony, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And who's the vice president?
Randy Kelly.
Great, thank you.
And on that note, we'll be holding an election to fill the board spot that I vacated.
Okay, so there's one.
Correct, there's one vacant spot.
So when will that be held?
We'll send out a notice this week about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then we have a guest and a presentation from Dr. Paul Demelian. Thank you for being here. Dr. Paul, you're welcome.
Thank you. My name is Paul Demelian. I volunteer for the CERT Advisory Committee, and my task was to work on a communication system for the CERT. Originally, when we started many years ago, we were going to use cell phones and texting on our cell phones if we had a disaster, but soon found out if we don't have power and the battery backup systems on cell phone towers die out, we don't have any form of communications to be able to report back to the fire department. So then we decided to use our kids' toys, use our FRS and EMRS radios, and we thought that was a great idea. And unfortunately, they work good for about 1 to 2 blocks, and then they're useless. And then we had the ham community, and with the hams, we have better radios, so we developed higher powered Pelican cases with transmitters that weighed about 35 pounds and had small gel cell batteries. And they worked pretty well, but you needed a more elaborate setup to get them from each station, and then only a few people could use them at a time. So as things evolved, we were borrowing a repeater from another local ham, Frank Adams, who also helped develop the repeater system we have today. And we were using his repeater, but unfortunately that's not a dedicated repeater. It's used by many hams, and we didn't have access 100% to that repeater all the time. And if that one repeater went down, then we'd have nothing either. So through the generosity of the fire board and great ideas through many people and support through Harold, Carol Parker, Manny, and the fire board, they came up with the idea, since they were developing a tower for their communications, they allowed the ham radio operators to set up a repeater there too. So we set up a repeater up on that tower, and it's a dedicated repeater for Menlo Fire Protection District, and it serves the hams that are affiliated with our CERT program. The neat thing about it, it's on a 440 megahertz frequency, and this is similar to the frequencies that is utilized by Frank Adams, but what's unique about it is it's designed not to interfere with any fire communications, yet be usable by lower powered transmitters like handheld radios that are up to 5 watts. So after initial testing several months ago, through the initial installation of this repeater that was done through TCA Communications and also Metro Mobile Communications, who also donated a lot of time and help beyond the call of duty, so to speak. We found that this repeater has a great footprint that serves all districts in Midland Fire. The nice thing about it is now we have caches of small handheld radios, and you can buy radios for $35, cheaper than the children's radios now, that can operate on this repeater. And we've used this repeater already in several unofficial exercises, such as when we had the large rainstorm, and it did actually help out the Menlo Medical Clinic when they lost all power. We set up a spontaneous net where we needed 911 communication. Since the cell phones didn't really work that well during the power outage, we could get a landline to emergency services. So again, what's unique about this is that if there's a large disaster, we have communications that will serve the CERTs and also serve the fire department, in light that the CERTs can now respond to the needs of the fire department with backbone communications that's redundant with 2 repeaters and also simplex frequency. There's also generator backup at this site, and eventually we plan to put battery backup too. The generator should kick in within about 30 seconds to 3 minutes if there's a power outage in the East Palo Alto Station 2. Other things that we could do with this repeater, in addition to voice communications, we have VoIP communications on it. So I'm able to connect to any repeater around the world using this handheld radio to Antarctica, Australia, to also surface on a repeater anywhere else that has this technology, and there's thousands of those repeaters available. So we can, with these radios and that repeater, we can serve outside communications. In addition, we can also send digital photographs over this repeater at a scene, and they could be delivered and printed off one of our printers and delivered to the EOC or ECC. So actually, the repeater goes way beyond its original design, and in addition, those companies did turn in several components to that repeater, such as the bandpass filter and a preamp, so it makes it very sensitive to pick up communications that are local. In addition, it is specifically designed not to interfere with fire communication or city communications. And that was the intent of the project, and it fulfilled all its criteria.
Nice job.
Great. Any
Peter?
questions?
This is on, what has to happen for this thing to be active, or is it active all the time?
It's active 24/7, and we have a dedicated net of ham radio operators, so if in an actual event, they will initiate a net to monitor the repeater until any action can be taken.
Ron?
I have a question. You had mentioned TVA Communications has helped you with this. Have they integrated your system so that in case of disaster, that you can communicate with the battalion chiefs or the engine companies?
There are some firefighters, there is one firefighter with communications here that is ham radio certified. So one possibility to integrate that system would be to have cadet firefighters take the ham license, so that way they can be integrated into the CERT communications. And also we're working on a communications trailer, which hopefully may have a fire radio in there, so that under strict permission, the operator can communicate with the ECC through Command 1 or whatever, if needed under special circumstances. So that's another way to pass information from the CERT vehicle to the fire.
Is there anything that we as a board can do, either a funding site, in order to help you go forward with this integration? Kind of like training some of the firefighters to get their ham licenses would be an example. Certain types of equipment that would be needed so that the different engines can communicate with your group. and have it accessible to the division chiefs and the battalion chiefs? Is there anything that we as a board can do for you with that? Because I know the chief is very supportive.
I would think that each vehicle, if they could be outfitted with a handheld radio and a speaker mic, would be the most cost-effective way. Since we have the repeater, we don't need high-powered equipment, nor do we need to spend thousands of dollars to have that inserted into your vehicle. This whole setup is about $150. And could be used in terms of funding, having that accessibility for each engine would be a reasonable thing. In terms of ham training, the cost of the exam is about $21. So having several firefighters take the ham exam, and there are one-day cram tests and everything, that they can get their license. Different ham certs in this committee will be more than happy to give them further training on how to use the ham frequencies.
It just wouldn't be the fee, but it would be maybe overtime issues and personnel type costs that would have to come out of pocket with the district as any other in-service training would. So that would be my.
I would say to utilize the extent of what this repeater offers, it would be reasonable to have such things accounted for, so the incidentals for training and everything, for overtime, that would be reasonable. This repeater is one of the best repeaters in the Bay Area in terms of its design. I don't think there's anyone locally that has a repeater that you do.
Great, thank you.
Chuck?
Two things, Paul, thank you very much. I know some of this was donated, but did you donate some of this equipment too? Is that right?
No, I didn't really donate much equipment or anything for it. Some power supplies were donated, but Metro Mobile did donate a preamp and also a filter. And the TCA Communications individual was also a ham radio operator, helped out in terms of setting the system up specifically for the certain needs that was beyond the scope of his initial work.
And my other question is there any concern of, assuming from all, we have lots of CERT members and lots of people have radios, I assume they'd all be on one channel or something? How do you separate all that and not have a traffic jam?
Oh, that makes absolute sense. Well, during a disaster, we have a net control operator, which is like your command one. So all the traffic will go through a net operator, so that way the operator controls the traffic. Also, there's a secondary repeater which we can use, and also a simplex frequency. So we have 3 frequencies in which we can use for main communication and tactical frequencies that are backed up repeaters. So that's been integrated into our communication plan. Basically, a repeater and a simplex frequency is already set in our communications plan.
And the last question, I know there was a repeater at one point at the top of the mountain behind us and so forth. Does this supersede that?
That is correct. This is our primary repeater used for Menlo Fire. The secondary repeater, N6NF5, not N6, N6ZX, which is Frank Adams' repeater, is up in Kings Mountain. It is also used for their local fire department disasters, and it's battery backup and generator backup also. And that's our secondary repeater if our primary repeater goes down.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just would like to follow up further on your question about how one deals with multiple people on this. One of the things that happens when you go through the ham training is you begin to learn the protocols that are put in place. We have a monthly call-in when a net control actually operates the net, and you very quickly learn that it's a very disciplined process. So that if somebody has an emergency, they know how to notify net control that they have urgent traffic, and then they wait until net control recognizes that station, and then they pass their traffic. And one of the key things here is having people who are well trained and well versed, first in being net control, and then ham operators who understand the discipline that's required to share a common frequency. Is that a fair?
I'd agree with you 100%. And in order to also be able to communicate better with the fire department and the CERTs, having firefighters with a hand license would be helpful. Also, granting cleared ham radio operators that are appropriate to be able to sit at stations in the ECC and the EOC, or shadow firefighters would be another way to augment communications.
Can I just follow up with one more? As I understand, taking it, anybody can use this, but technically, and not technically, you have to be trained to be authorized to use this equipment, is that correct?
Correct. You need a FCC license for a ham radio operator, at least a technician license to use this equipment. In addition, this repeater is a closed repeater. So during any emergency, anyone, regardless if you have a license or not, can utilize it by FCC rules. But for the local Bay Area, this is a closed repeater that will serve only CERTs affiliated with Menlo Fire Protection District.
Could you tell them, some people aren't familiar with the ham frequencies, but there are thousands of ham frequencies that are accessible, and which makes it a really, really valuable resource, especially during a disaster, especially if they're ham certified. And I think a lot of people don't know all those frequencies that are available. I mean, there's like thousands, hundreds of
Millions.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
Yeah, basically, ham radio operators started out in the early 19th century, and basically, through this evolution, we've been allotted chunks of spectrum. Those are different frequencies, and traditionally, you remember ham radio operators with Morse code transmitting long distance. That's in the HF, or high frequency spectrum. The spectrum that we're allotted here is in the UHF and VHF frequencies. Specifically, we're on the 440. Menlo Fire works on the 170 frequency, so that's VHF. So that way I chose this frequency, so that way we minimize any interference with Menlo Fire's communications. We have more or less a frequency set for the hams. The unique thing about a repeater, it is very hard to get a frequency set locally here in the Bay Area for a UHF repeater on the ham frequencies. Again, through special contacts, we're piggybacked onto someone's frequency who has a repeater system north of us. So that's how we were able to be sort of grandfathered into this frequency class.
Okay. Dr. Jamali, thank you for everything you do for the fire district and for Atherton. And thank you for being on the CERT advisory committee. We're very, very fortunate to have you. And thank you for being here and presenting us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 3 is to introduce and adopt the urgency measure amending ordinance number 36A 2013. So that means we'll be voting on ordinance number 36B 2013 after we close public hearings. So this is the public hearing for ordinance number 36B 2013. And I'd like to open that up if there's anyone here from the public who'd like to comment. Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 36B 2013?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Just to verify that would be introduced and adopted.
Introduce and adopt, for effective immediately too, upon adoption. And just to help out our clerk, if we can make our votes visible to her, that would be great. So there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Any abstentions? So it's a vote of 4 to 1, 0 abstentions, 4 yeas, 1 nay, 0.
Yeah, I'd just like the record to show that I'm opposed to it because, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but the town of Atherton, the city of East Palo Alto, the county of San Mateo, all adopted the state fire code without change. And what we're talking about with the city of Menlo Park is taking that code and modifying it so that it's different than what was adopted by Atherton, East Palo Alto, and the county. Is that correct?
Not the code, the ordinance. So the code is provided, comes from the state. But yeah, the ordinance is different for the city of Menlo Park based upon negotiations that were put in place to find a comfortable spot that they were willing to agree to. And we won't know that until January 27th, which is when this goes on, we believe, consent. Correct. But that is, yeah, it's a different position.
And the issue is basically that the other jurisdictions agreed that you, the fire chief, have the ability to veto changes to roadways which were our primary response routes that were proposed in those jurisdictions. And the city of Menlo Park has refused to accept that.
I don't know if they refuse to, I know that
They have accepted.
Correct. They have
Okay.
issue, they take
Fine.
issue.
They didn't accept it.
They don't want to give up all of their rights and
They
privileges.
don't want to give up any, okay. So that's the reason for my opposition. The other jurisdictions have, without question adopted the language of the city of Menlo Park, unique amongst all the jurisdictions we serve, said, sorry, we don't want to do that, we want control. And I'd just like the record to show that that's why I voted against it.
Great, thanks, Peter. Okay, so reports and requests. We'll start off with the president's report. First of all, I just wanted to thank Rex Ianson, former president, for all the things that he's done.
It was a hoot.
And your service to the fire district over decades. So thank you for everything that you've done, Rex.
You're welcome.
For being a great leader and a great mentor.
Thank you.
So I also wanted to report that I went to the Board of Supervisors reorg on January 6th, and the new president of the Board of Supervisors is Carol Broom, and the new vice president is Supervisor Warren Slocum from District 4, so he's in our district. So that went smoothly. Also, I had a meeting with the Mayor of East Palo Alto, Lisa Gauthier, and Councilwoman Laura Martinez, and that was with Chuck and the chief, and I think that we got a lot of, we discussed a lot of good things. I'm hoping that Director Bernstein will update us when it comes to the liaison report. And I've got a meeting scheduled with Alex McIntyre, the city manager of Menlo Park, with Director Ianson and the chief and Mayor Catherine Carlton and Council Member Peter Otaki, who are the two liaisons, to talk about various items. So if you have any items that you want the chief to discuss or for us to discuss in the meetings, please forward them to the chief. And also, I just wanted to say that the ordinance 36B 2015, I understand from Mayor Catherine Carlton that that's going to be placed on the consent agenda. So she's assured me that'll happen next week at their council meeting on January 27th, but she didn't guarantee me that someone wouldn't pull it off. But, I think that it's a very positive step that's going to be on the consent. I think that the last thing I have to say is that we have a meeting, I believe, scheduled with the town of Atherton in late April, unless that has been changed.
That's correct. It still is in
April
late
29th.
April.
April 29th, right?
That's what it is, yeah.
And that's all I
That's
thought.
the joint meeting. That's the first time in 8 years. We did it 8 years ago.
April 29th, so, and I just found out about this, so I think that you can make that meeting. I just got it totally unexpected as well.
I'm typically not available the last week of the month, never have been in the middle, so.
Well, I mean, is that a flexible date too? Because I really
You can
want
ask for a
Peter-
different date. That's what the city manager selected.
Yeah.
So he asked us if that, he actually told us that was the date that they had tentatively selected.
So, I do think it's important for Peter to be there since it's the activity.
We can ask for a different date.
So they're proposing the 29th?
I believe that's correct.
I'll see if I can change my schedule. I would not want to pass up the opportunity to have the meeting just because I'm out of town. And perhaps I can come back for that evening.
We'll just
So
let
let's-
you know.
Well, right now, let's stay with it. And, if my suspicion is it may in fact, still be somewhat up in the air. So,
Okay, so we'll stay with it for now. Okay, that's all I have for the president's report. Reports and requests from directors. Well,
I met, last month I met with Richard Gloria, the mayor of Atherton. We had a pretty good conversation involving some of the issues that.
I can't hear you.
talked about some of the issues the fire district. I contacted Peter, who's the liaison with Atherton, to let him know I was going to meet with Rick. I had not met Rick before, and I wanted to meet him. He had brought up a software program that they use, opengovernment.com, that talks about a lot of their budgetary items, and it's an open format that people can just go to the website and look at it. I was going to talk to the chief about this at a later date and see if he had any additional ideas, but that was something that I got out of Rick when I met with him. In fact, there's a web training webinar tomorrow that I'm going to listen through from 10 to 11 to see if it's applicable enough for us. So that's all I have real quick.
Menlo Park, well, we met on the 18th with their mayor, the new mayor, and one of the councilmen, and the city manager, and we talked about the fire code, which they have on their agenda. We talked about the M2 general plan and Station 6. The fire code and Station 6 have been taken care of. The general plan of the M2, we're going to have a meeting with them on the 27th, is still on our agenda, and we're trying to put it on there.
Yeah, I've had actually 3 meetings with the new mayor of Atherton. And first, I'd just like to comment that Mayor DeGolia, I think, is doing something truly unique in the history of Atherton, certainly in the many years I've lived there. He's probably spending someplace between 25 and 30 hours a week as mayor. And one of the things he's doing, he's going through all of the historical records of the city council, which is wonderful because he understands what the council did 10 years ago and 15 years ago, and it gives a whole different sense to the kind of leadership I think he's going to be able to provide to the community. He and I had a lot of discussions primarily on the funding issues of the fire district. And there's long been a belief amongst some of the local governments that we serve, whose citizens we serve, Atherton, East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, that somehow the fire district is funded by those jurisdictions. And the town manager of Atherton put together a report for the council basically showing how much of the fire district's revenues came from, quote, the town of Atherton. And I, armed with material provided by staff and material that I gathered elsewhere, showed we don't get money from either the town of Atherton or from the properties in Atherton. We share a certain amount of revenue on a county-wide basis as one of the strange artifacts of Proposition 13 and other implementing legislation. And so it came as a real surprise to the mayor to understand that when the property value of a particular parcel in Atherton goes up, that we don't get a piece of that directly, that just simply contributes to the county-wide tax base, and then we get a piece of the county-wide tax base. And he was sort of, said, well, that's really hard to understand. And I said, yes, it's hard to understand, but that's the way it is. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And we would prefer that we would get the revenues from the properties which we serve, but that's just not the way the system is set up. So it's been an interesting discussion, and I appreciate the fact that he's very open-minded on the issue and willing to take the time to read all the stuff I send him.
Thanks, Peter.
Chief, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think we constantly fight that bad information. I mean, you're exactly correct. So, the perception isn't correct, but hopefully it's not going to come up again, because it tends to do that every so many years. And they see it as a negative. They feel as if the district somehow is taking advantage of the town or the cities, and that's absolutely not correct.
I don't understand, why does it think it's taking advantage?
Well, the simplistic explanation is the town of Atherton says, well, wait a minute, you get all this money from Atherton Properties and you've only got one fire station in Atherton. Doesn't sound like we're getting our fair share. And I was quick to point out, you get the benefit of all these other stations because everybody comes in and can serve here. And then I said somewhat sarcastically, would you like us to come in and use eminent domain and take 2-acre parcels off the property line? And they have no interest in us doing that. So,
Well, and for point of clarity, so there are 5 stations that service portions of Atherton in deployment because they're the closest unit to those areas. So you can't, geographically, you can't just look at a station and say that's it. And that is a constant misnomer as well. So we service the town much better through strategic deployment, not always with stations in the town of Atherton.
and the other answer that I give people who ask me these questions is, we as a fire district have one standard, and that is to provide the same level of service to everybody in the district. We don't care whether you're rich or poor, Atherton or East Palo Alto. If we get a call from your address, we respond. And nobody sits there and says, oh, this is how much property tax that property paid, anything else. Everybody gets the same response, and we have, through mutual aid agreements, lots of other people who come in and help us when necessary, and we go help other people.
Great, thanks, Peter. Chuck, East Palo Alto?
Yes, I am the newly appointed liaison to East Palo Alto, and I attended a meeting with our chairperson, with the new mayor, who's Lisa Yarborough-Gautier, and Laura Martinez. And there were 2 issues that they brought up. One, this was actually triggered by our chief, because they haven't had a permanent city manager for a while. It's been difficult at an administrative level to deal with the city in some ways, and so the chief was at the beginning of the meeting, and expressed his interest in having a more regular kind of communication and a permanent city manager. There's an acting city manager right now, and the 2 council members agreed that that should be done and felt that it was imminent. They thought that there would be somebody in place before the end of February, so that seems good. The second issue is that they were concerned about CERT matters and emergency preparedness in East Palo Alto. They were disappointed by some of the flood concerns. They didn't feel that they weren't getting enough information, and I'm not sure they were targeting us. They were just, that was the district. They were just saying there are still people that don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do, and that they're just very hungry to have an emergency plan. And I think it is something that we need to do. And as a member of the Emergency Preparedness Committee with Rex, I think it's something that I'd like to be working on. So those were the 2 concerns that they had. They do want more CERT training in the area, in the city. I think we're talking about, right now they represent 1 CERT district, which is too much territory for a single district. And so I think all of that is in place. We tried to reassure them. They felt it was a good meeting, and they were actually asking for they'd like their council to meet with our board at some point. And we didn't talk further about that, but they expressed an interest in a closer working relationship. That's all I have to report.
Any comments or questions? Okay, great, thank you, Chuck. So on to the consent calendar.
Oh, the chief.
Oh, I'm sorry, your report, the most important
They have to
person.
answer any questions, but it is
Sorry.
what it is.
Sorry.
We got a long
You
meeting,
had a
so.
good report too, so
Thank you.
anything you want to talk about and highlight?
Not really. I think you guys talked about it all already, so
Okay, thank you.
we're good. I'm good.
Now we're on the consent calendar.
Correct.
Was there anything using something written down here?
Is there what?
There's nothing written in. We didn't get anything.
Oh, you didn't have a report in there?
No.
Emailed it.
I'll send it out. It must.
That's okay. As long as
It's not in
It's
your
just not
packet.
in the packet.
Not-
Yeah, it makes it easy because you gotta have an idea
I
what
want
you're
to assure you, we did do a report.
Yeah, because I got it from email.
I never point fingers.
Yeah, yeah.
Is the chief's report the same as the update that we received?
No,
No?
so I give you updates separate from the chief's report.
Oh,
I apologize for that, I will send it out.
Okay. And
So
any
give me
members of the
questions.
public who would like to, just let Michelle know and she'll make sure you get a copy of it because it should be in the packet. It's an item of
It,
a monthly review.
it's on the website, it just didn't make it to your packet. I
Ah,
apologize.
Okay.
very
I
good.
thought I
Printing
got
error,
something
okay.
in
Yeah.
email.
Anomaly.
Okay.
All right, well,
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
Consent calendar. I'd
Consent
like to
calendar.
remove item number 11.
Okay.
And I'd like to move the other items on the consent calendar.
second?
I'm sorry, just item 11?
Yes, go on.
Yeah, okay.
There's a motion to approve everything else on the consent calendar but 11.
Okay,
It was a second.
yeah. So all in favor?
Aye.
You raise your hand.
Okay.
Thank you. So, that unanimous?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so item 11 here.
Yeah, I'd like to move on item 11, I'd like to move approval of all of the committee assignments and liaisons except finance.
Okay.
I'd like to add those to prepare
No,
themselves.
we're just gonna move
Oh, okay.
except finance, and we'll come to finance separately. So I'm approving everything else except finance. That's the motion.
Is there a second?
Sorry.
Is there a second?
Wait a minute. We're just talking about his financial part, right?
No, I'm moving item 11, I'm moving approval of all the committee assignments and liaisons except for finance.
Right.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we're gonna come to finance.
Right.
Once this passes, or doesn't pass,
I think it's passed.
I think it did.
Okay, so Peter, finance.
And I'd like to make a motion that the Finance Committee consist of Director Bernstein as chairman, myself, and Stephen Nachtheim, who served on the committee in the past as a community representative. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to open it up for discussion. Because I know that this was, having civilians on the committees, I think is a good idea. But there was no real process in place to select anyone from the community. And it was done in a haphazard manner. And quite frankly, I thought it would open up the district to, I guess, I don't want to say liability, but it could be, you know, why certain people didn't get appointed. So what the reason I haven't selected anyone at this time is that I think that there should be a more formal process put in place so that we can send out a request to the community at large and have, just like what the city councils do, and take applications for those who are interested on the two standing committees right now that will have meetings, which will be finance and the emergency preparation committee. That's the only reason that this hasn't
Well,
been assigned.
Madam President, I would just suggest, if you have those concerns, that that's an item for discussion at the board,
Okay.
rather than just simply taking a sitting member of a committee and not reappointing him. And I would prefer that we go ahead and appoint Stephen Nachtheim to this committee, and then if you want at a subsequent board meeting to look at the board policy, which allows non-board members to serve on committees, then that's a suitable subject.
Right, okay, so then.
Also, there was Jeff Nelson also served on the emergency preparedness committee too. And I think he should be considered to be back on that committee. Or we need to have a process, like you had suggested. But if we're going to bring Stephen back on, I think we need to bring Jack back on also. I think that would be fair.
Well, we've got a motion now on finance. We've passed the other ones. So,
We're still having a discussion.
Okay.
Yes, so to the motion, yes, Chuck.
I just want to make a statement and ask a question. I actually support the concern that you have about a process. I think it's reasonable to have a process, and I don't think we have one, so I like that. But I wanted to ask our council, as I understand, and I could be wrong, it's the chair's responsibility to appoint members to committees. Is procedurally, is Peter's motion in order? In other words, can the board override our bylaws, or whatever you call it, what do you call them? Policies and procedures?
Well, it provides in section 4.4, the board president or designee shall outline the duties and responsibilities of a board member on a committee at the time of appointment.
Like, in terms of the selection.
But read on.
Yeah, hold on. And then it talks about registered voters. 2 board members shall serve on all standing and ad hoc committees. Registered voters who reside in the district, not otherwise employed by the district, may be appointed to board committees standing or ad hoc as non-voting members. It doesn't discuss the appointing authority.
But section 4.2 specifies
I'm looking at that right now.
approval of the board.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and it's here for that purpose. That's the way it's agendized. So the answer to your question is, the board policy document says, yes, the board president designates the individuals, but it's subject to the approval of the board. That's what
Yes, that is correct.
That's what
I
the
finally
policy
got to
manual.
that. I
That's
finally
what
got
the
to
policy
that
manual
sentence. Thank you
says.
for confirming my legal opinion, sir.
Okay.
You are correct.
But the board president hasn't designated.
But can I just follow up my question just a
However, let me just point out one thing. In thinking about this, and I didn't see this until we just started this discussion, there is a very obscure provision in the California Government Code, I haven't looked at probably in 25 years, but it provides that local agencies should post vacancies for appointed positions for purposes of informing the public that there are public positions available. Now, again, I haven't looked at this statute for a long, long time. It doesn't generally come up, but there may be a requirement that we actually post the availability. This doesn't go to the part of the motion here, but in terms of process, there may be an obligation that we have to post via the website the availability of appointments to these committees of those non-voting resident members. So prospectively going forward, we may have to do that. I'll double check on that before we clerk. But to your point about process, that may be a requirement we have to follow. So those are
And I would welcome an agenda item at a future meeting when we decide whether or not we want to, in fact, change the board policy manual in this area. If we do, recognize that that requires 2 subsequent meetings of the board for changes in the board policy manual. So we first have to consider a proposal, and then we have to vote on it, and then we have to come back and we have to reaffirm that at a subsequent meeting.
But are you saying, Stephen, that the statute might even supersede any kind of board policy and procedures?
It's not a question of superseding the board's procedures, because you have the unique procedure, which is your right to have residents of the district be non-voting members of your committees. That's perfectly appropriate. Has nothing to do with the statute whatsoever. All the statute did, and again, this goes back many, many years, all the statute did was require the public agencies identify those positions that are subject to board or city council appointment, such as planning commission, architectural review board, things of that nature. They simply identify that those are positions that are available for appointment.
And that's what I'm proposing.
So that wouldn't require any change in your procedures whatsoever. All it would require is that the clerk actually do it based upon the statute, so that that's publicly available information.
I want to follow up on my question, though. So what you're seemingly suggesting is that the board could override the board president's appointments?
Yeah, because it's with the approval of the board.
Yeah.
And that also, in the reverse, if the chairperson or the board president were to remove somebody, the board could override that as well?
Presumably, yes. And generally, people who are appointed to these positions remain until their successor is appointed.
Yeah.
So if you have someone who's a member of a committee right now, they remain.
That's the genesis of my, taking this particular committee with which I am familiar and saying I think we should continue to have Stephen Nachtheim serve as a non-voting resident member. And that's the motion that's before the body.
Any other discussion?
I just, one more, unfortunately, it'd be nice to be able to vote on a policy or procedure without having to vote on an individual, so.
It's not on the agenda. You want to put it on the agenda, that's fine. We have a procedure for putting things on the agenda.
Well, what I'm saying to you is that I feel a little lost here because I like Stephen Nachsham, I'd like to work with him. But I also am concerned about the procedural part, and I wish we had maybe some more clarity about that.
I think it's pretty clear, but what's not clear?
I would,
The existing policy is right here in
the question of whether,
agenda item number 11.
of whether these need to be posted or not. And Stephen, can I just mention, I was on some of these committees for the city of Menlo Park, and I think they made a distinction, by the way, between voting and non-voting members and so forth, so I'm just adding that more.
Like you said, it's been a long time since I said that, to verify, but I think it's simply a question of posting the availability of people in a position for whatever commission or committee there is.
I would encourage, if President or you want to put this on the agenda for further discussion as a process issue, fine. But I'd like to call the question and so we get on to the rest of the agenda.
Okay, so there's no more discussion, so that's fine. So the motion is to approve that Stephen Nachsham be appointed as a civilian to remain on the
No.
finance.
That Chuck Bernstein be chairman, I would be a member, and Stephen Nachsham be the resident member.
Right, so we've
That's the-
already, yes.
That's the motion,
Okay. All in
which
favor?
was seconded.
Yes, all in favor? Aye.
I'm voting against it.
Okay, so it's 4-1.
So then I would move that Jack Nelson be appointed to the Emergency Preparedness Committee.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? So I do want to say something. I know that the Emergency Preparedness Committee is looking at things beyond CERT, which would include development issues, permitting issues, dealing with the N2. And so that N2 and the general plan, and the downtown specific plan. So I, have no problem with having Jack on there, but I do also think that we need to have someone with that kind of a background as we move forward. But that's my own opinion.
Call the question.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Opposed?
Yes, I'm opposed.
And I abstain. Okay, so thank you. Great. Okay, so let's get on to item number 15 on the regular agenda, which is to consider for approval a resolution authorizing the fire chief to execute the memorandum of understanding with AFSCME Local 829 for the term of January 9th, 2015 through January 8th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
You have a,
Yep.
speaker card?
Okay, here. Okay, Linda Gregory.
After everybody else speaks. Well, the board,
Okay, I mean, there's
The
no,
normal procedure would be for the public to speak first.
That's correct.
yes.
well, okay. I'm hopeful that your vote will be to approve the tentative agreement that's been bargained between the district and AFSCME. With that hope, I'm going to hazard some really positive comments to the district and to the staff. Thank you for working to build trust and to mean what you say as a district. We appreciate the board's deliberations and responsibilities, and we know that that assuring life and public safety are the chief focus, and that your role as an employer is a bit down the list. But it's worth an investment to build excellence, to build trust and stability for your employees. You notice I said employees and not the union, because it's really about your relationship with the employees. We're kind of a helping visitor. That said, I think the district has gone about building those conditions over the last year. And with 3 really good outcomes, I think, all of which benefit the district and the public. With increased motivation on the part of employees to improve their skills, avoiding turnover, greatly improved morale, and in connection with that, the condition that Director Carpenter described at the end of the pension study session, which is that people actually look forward to coming to work. I have observed more of that over the last year than I have in the entire time that I've been here as representative, and it is so heartwarming to see. And we are really grateful to the board and to the staff for that. I want to comment that the recent bargaining was conducted very professionally, in good faith. You can always tell after you're really old when an agency intends and wants to have an agreement. The other side's listening, they put the issues out on the table, there's an honest exchange, there's real compromise, things move along and people are actually working hard. I want to compliment you because I think the staff that you've engaged, your human resources manager, has a really interesting style. It's very blunt and no nonsense, but absolutely good faith. And really you have one of the hardest working people I've ever seen in this field, especially now when HR is not exactly stacked area-wide with great talent. So I think you really made a great choice. I think it had a very positive effect on bargaining. It moved it along very fast. I think she well represented the district's views about issues which caused us to back off on some things. And you want that candor. You have to have it, because otherwise things fall apart. So I want to say we're very grateful for the positive change. We're grateful that you have professional staff, and we're grateful for the boards. What we think have been you have really wanted to reach an agreement, and we hope we responded in kind, and we hope you will vote to approve the agreement.
Thank you. Any discussion among the board members?
With all due respect, Linda, you and I have had many discussions about this, and I respect you greatly. But I'd like to talk for a moment about the trust that we as a board have with the residents that we serve. Some of you may know that I'm involved in education and child care, which means I'm talking, our year starts September 1, but I talk to people about paying them $40,000 a year when they have master's degrees and 5 to 10 years of experience. And it's hard for me to be voting for a proposal that is paying people in excess of $80,000 a year who are only high school graduates. I just feel uncomfortable. I feel dishonest with people that live in Menlo Park that work for me. And that's the world that I have to deal with. And people say, how can that be that a person who is part of an important program in Menlo Park is more important than someone who's teaching children? And that's the world that I live in. We're talking about an increase in the current proposal that could be as much for people who haven't reached the top of the steps of 12% this year, and perhaps as much as 8 or 9% in subsequent years. That's an awful large increase. We're talking about, for year 2015, the increase in the Social Security payments to people, 1.7%. And I know a lot of people, I'm of retirement age, but we in the private sector don't get to retire in the same way that people in the public sector do. But they're getting an increase of 1.7%, and we're talking about 12%. It's just hard for me to be supportive of that, and has nothing to do with the merit of the people that are working. It has nothing to do with the quality of their work. It only has to do with a sense of fairness. The people paying the taxes are not doing as well. And it's something that concerns me. I think there are some problems with the structure of the proposal. I don't like these step increases. It says in wording that people get that there's no automatic increases. However, that is a step increase. However, all you need is a satisfactory performance and it's automatic. I don't know what else. Anybody who's unsatisfactory presumably is on the verge of being terminated. So anybody who's not being terminated gets an increase of 5% every year. Automatically, forgetting that the charts themselves increase. We're just talking about huge, huge increases that concern me a great deal. We're talking about people getting paid for working, they call it development fee or something like that. These are add-on pays. If your job only requires a high school diploma, but you have a BA, you get an extra 5%. That doesn't make sense. These are responsible positions paying over $80,000 a year. They should be at the level that requires a BA. And I think Peter very eloquently argued for there might be a Steve Jobs there who we'd want to hire because he was a genius. But the fact is, a Steve Jobs who was hired would get paid less. According to the way we do it, we should be requiring higher degrees. There are people, if somebody works more than 4 days doing something that's out of their category, they get paid more. That means if your supervisor goes away for a week and you take on the supervisor's responsibility, you get more money. That's just not the kind of philosophy world that I want to support. I'm going to vote against the proposal, and that's the reason why. I think as we talk about the future and the nature of the workforce of this district, I think we need to be looking toward the future. We need to be stressing education, and we need to be stressing fairness with what's going on with the people who live here. And I'm sorry for making such a long presentation on it, but I think there are a number of issues here that concern me greatly. Tomorrow morning, I will say I voted against it, but tomorrow morning I'm going to go back to work, and the people who are paying the taxes to support this aren't doing so well. And that's something that I don't know how I can justify that to them, and in fact I can't. So I won't try. I'm simply going to vote against it tonight. So. Again, all due respect to you, I think AFSCME has been a wonderful partner with the district. They've worked hard. The employees are top-notch, in my opinion. I've enjoyed working with them. I've enjoyed working with you, and there's nothing at a personal level at all. It's just an issue of fairness.
Thanks, Chuck. Peter?
Yeah, I really appreciate Director Bernstein's sharing his perspective. I would build on that, though, and say that it is a partnership. We, as the board, representing the citizens of the district and being responsible for the overall direction of the district, are engaged in a partnership not only with the taxpayers and the citizens we serve, but a partnership with everybody who is a member of our community as employees, firefighters, and non-safety people. Everybody knows that over the years I have certainly expressed a lot of concerns about the public pension system in general and its viability. I've also expressed concerns about the level of pay in public service, certain kinds of public service versus others. And I've shared with the board in the past, the fact that, here's somebody who's an Air Force colonel who's responsible for Air Force One, which is a $400 million operation, who's getting paid less than some of the people we have serving here. But the reality is that we are operating in a marketplace where the non-safety and safety employees who are part of our staff could very easily go someplace else and do as well as they do here, if not better. Would I like to see changes as we move into the future? Yes. Would I like to find pension programs that are more sustainable? Yes. I think we should remember that ASME stood up and said, hey, you know, we'll go without a raise because we know that these are difficult economic times. And so I go back to that partnership concept. I think when we begin negotiations, let me restate that. Before we begin negotiations, I think that we should make sure that we spend time clarifying amongst ourselves what our objectives are, and then recognize that in a labor management negotiation, we may have whatever desires we want, but an agreement can only be reached when both sides find common ground. And so we may start off here, and somebody else may start out here, but that doesn't mean our position is right and their position is wrong. The whole concept of labor management relationships is that you come to the table and you find a common place. And I think with the work that Jenny's done, with the work Linda's done, we have found that common place. Is it perfect? No. Would they like to have more things that are on the table? I'm sure they would. Would we like it to cost less and be more comparable to other parts of the economy? We probably would. But this is what we have come to as a result of good faith negotiations. And again, it's not perfect, but it is the result of a partnership. And I will certainly support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Any other comment? Rex?
The thing all I had is, I just look at it as it's about trust, keeping your word, and good faith. We agreed to that. We took it as a tentative agreement. And we got it.
So I'm going to add, I agree with Rex and Peter regarding good faith and trusting, but I also want to add that Jenny, our negotiator, has done a great job and came within the range that we gave her. And I know that took a lot of trust and a good relationship that's been fostered over the years. So I want to thank Jenny for doing that so that we can even move forward with this, because this contract negotiation happened very, very quickly, which I think is good too. But I am also going to say that I understand what Director Bernstein is saying, but in this situation, we had the parameters and we came to an agreement. So I also want to thank the chief as well for kind of being there as a guide. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I do. I'd like to thank Jenny as well and Linda and the team. I think they did a good job. They came to, I think, was a good summary in terms of what the offer is before you. It's been sunshine. I think the board had some creative ideas and, focusing on paying employees who can live close a little bit more money, which is a great thing, because these are people that when we need them, trust me, they answer the call. And so for them to be able to live closer and get a stipend for that, I think is a great trend that I hope we continue with, because it's not getting cheaper to live here, it's getting more expensive to live here. And having these people close by is really important. If I had to put a picture next to the word reasonable in the dictionary, it'd be Linda's face. And the reason I say that is because, Director Carpenter said it. The height of the economic decline, it was AFSCME that said, we don't need to negotiate. We understand it's difficult times, and we're not going to ask for anything except for just renew the agreement status quo. And they did that. So this group has not had an increase since 2008. That's 7 years. I think they did that because they were smart. I think it was Linda who led the charge to do that. She saw which way things were going, and she, rightfully so, made a good decision, and her group followed her. To the people in the group that work within AFSCME, and Linda said it, it's employees of the people. And this is a group that, over and over again comes to work enthusiastic. And if I could bottle that and, use it, I would. Because, these employees, while not safety, while not on the front line every day, these are people that come in support of the mission of the fire district. They do a great job doing it. So again, congratulations to Jenny, to Linda, to the team and the group. I would encourage you to approve this. I respect Director Bernstein's position. I also understand that, you know, there's going to be another contract in the future. I think some of the concerns that he raises, certainly in the future, we can take a look at. So.
Sure.
I think this sums up like, in 3 words, trust, professionalism, and service. And Linda, dealing with you, Jenny, you've done an excellent job, and of course the chief being the go-between. I really feel that we have a good contract, we have a good pool of employees here that want to serve the district, want to serve our citizenry, and I think it pretty much sums it up in those 3 words. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it for discussion?
I would just also pick up on the point that Chief touched on. We have put in place a procedure for sunshine. We addressed this at our last meeting. It has been a matter of public comment. To the best of my knowledge, we've received what, 1?
2.
Two responses from the public.
Yes.
And I don't mean to say that since we haven't heard an overwhelming cry out from the public that that makes it good or bad, but I just want us to appreciate the fact we did do this. I know that amongst the employees, when we established the sunshine rule, there was a lot of anxiety that it was going to expose them to unnecessary criticism or derision, and I would just note that that's not happened. And I think that that's a reflection of the fact that the people who have looked at this and understand the history recognize that this is a reasonable compromise between the objectives of the 2 parties, and it's ended up with a mutually satisfactory agreement, and that's what it's all about.
I just wanted to ask the chief, in my mail, I received a letter from Henry Briggs. Can you tell me what the second invitation was?
Michelle has it right
It
here.
was from J. Michael Millard, and that was sent this afternoon.
I don't know if anybody else received
I
it.
Okay,
didn't.
I can forward it to the board.
But can you, well, we're going to vote tonight. Can you just read it to us quickly, or is it more?
Oh, no, it's 2 sentences. I urge the board not to approve the proposed contract for administrative personnel. The pay structure deserves further study. That was it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Call the question.
Yep, okay, so, all in favor for approving the MOU?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I'm opposed for the reasons stated.
And no abstentions. Thank you. Okay, item number 16. Consider and adopt the awarding of basically the auditor contract to the Cleaning Group.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Kathleen, would you like to just touch on this?
I think we were in a contract, I guess, for approximately 3 years in the past, 3 to 5 years with the previous auditors. We did go out with an RFP, they do interviews, and came up with a young group. We expect them to be quite good. And they are going to be doing all the reporting that we wanted, as well as initiating the state controllers report, which is quite helpful for staff.
Any further? Chuck?
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion, please. I'd like to add on page 10 of of Exhibit A. No, I'm sorry, it's not. It's page 10 of the contract. Item number 3.
Under reports to be issued?
It's the list of tasks. It's Exhibit A. It's page 10 of the contract. Top of the-
Exhibit A is scope of work.
Yes, and the top of page 10, item number 3 there.
Okay, because there are 2 item number 3s on page 10, so if you're looking at.
I see, yes, at the top of the page.
Okay,
I'd like to amend the contract to specify that the final management letter be delivered to the audit committee of the board.
And I think it does speak to that as far as reporting to the audit committee. On page 11, it discusses what requirements the auditors will have with this contract. It ensures that Menlo Park Fire District Audit Committee is informed of each of the following. So the auditor's responsibility and generally accepted auditing standards, significant changes or updates, management judgments and accounting estimates, significant audit adjustments, auditor's judgments about the quality of the entities, accounting principles, disagreements with management, management consultation with other accountants, major issues discussed with management prior to audit completion, and then difficulties encountered in performing the audit. So I think you're going to get the audit letter because it's all going to be part of their presentation to the audit committee.
I don't believe it specifies that. It might occur, but I think normally when you're looking for exceptions, you want to see the letter that's delivered by them, and so that's the reason for my amendment.
I would like to second his motion, and I would second it because of all the boards I've ever sat on, the audit committee always reported to the board. It didn't report to the staff. And I think Director Bernstein is correct. The language at the top of page 10, management letters should be addressed to the board of directors. They can be copied to anybody else in the world, but that's who the audit is being performed for. And it's very important in every organization I've been involved with that management letters come to the board because it's the board's responsibility to be the fiduciary agent.
Okay, so we've got this amended motion to add that the management letter would go to the audit committee essentially. And there's a second.
Well, actually, I would say management letters should be addressed to the board, the fire board.
Okay.
And, you know, we give it to the audit committee, but it comes to the fire board because it's,
Okay.
the auditors are working for us.
Yeah, and generally what I've seen happen during the audits is that the management letter comes to staff. We
And
go
there's
through it.
The draft management letter.
Draft.
And staff, there's a lot of discussion. But when the management letter is written,
When it's
it is
finalized.
addressed to the governing body.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so that's not Chuck's motion. So would you want to?
No, I agree with what you just said.
He's accepted from the amendment.
Got it,
So
okay.
it says management letters shall be addressed to the fire board.
Okay, so all in favor of that amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, it's a unanimous vote.
So just to clarify, the contract on page 10, the last sentence is going to state, management letters shall be addressed to the fire board.
To the fire board.
Do you want to specify the final management letter or just management
Now,
letters?
management letters and management letters, what
Okay.
they sign.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Thank
there's
you.
drafts and stuff like that, we don't need to address that because that's the normal process of business. But when they put their name on a management letter, the addressee for the management letter should be the fire board.
Okay.
And thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. And I would just want to expand a little bit on what Peter said, just for the sake of the staff. They might, it's possible the auditor has misunderstood something or whatever. Staff will have plenty of time to either fix something that's trivial or correct the opinion of the auditor and whatever. So we're not to get the draft. It's only when it's all done in
Right,
final.
yeah, and that's great.
Okay.
Okay, so now that we've approved that amendment to this contract, and we're going to approve the contract, the wording of the contract, and the resolution with the amendment. And we had discussion, is there any more discussion? Okay, so let's take the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So it's a unanimous decision. Thank you, and thank you, Chuck, for bringing that up. Okay, item number 17 is to discuss and provide direction to staff on the presentation of CAFR, which is year ending June 30th, 2014, and you mentioned here. Excellent, pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, this is self-explanatory. Would you like, Mays to come in and talk you through what the CAFR is saying?
Any discussion on that? Kevin Mays and Associates, who was the auditing firm that did this last CAFR, come in and present any discuss this? We need
I
to
just,
give-
can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Does it cost the district any more to have that occur?
No, that's pretty much in the contract from before.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? So, just the direction of staff is to have the associates come in and present the capital, the next,
Sorry, at the next meeting, the next board meeting?
I don't think so, in February, I don't know what the agenda number was, or
Or-
whenever they're available.
I guess to be determined.
Yeah, subject to their availability. Okay, thank you. Okay, and now item 18.
Could I just ask one more question
Sure.
about the capper? Is this on our website now, or when will this be on the website?
I apologize, I don't know, it should be on the website, but I will have to check, I'm not sure.
But the intent is to get it on the website right away. Thank you.
And the copy was included in your board packet.
Yeah, I have my copy, I just
Yes.
wondered if the public wanted to review it. I don't mean this to be critical. We've got some old dates on our website. We've got information there that's 2010, 2011, and nothing more recent. So there could be some updating of things. I went, by the way, to look for, I made the mistake to look for the sunshine thing, and sure enough, it's there in very small print on the front, but I hit the labor relations button, and there they have the MOUs and stuff from 2012. So we just got some very outdated information.
Thanks, Chad. Okay, agenda item 18, to approve the district meeting calendar for the year 2000, this calendar year 2015. And Michelle, I know that you put this calendar together, so thank you for doing that. And essentially, the two standing committees right now are the Emergency Preparedness Committee and the Finance Committee. So those are on here as the first Tuesday of the month, which is the normal day of the month. Time to be determined based on everyone's schedule, and then our regularly scheduled board meetings, which are on the third Tuesdays of the month. Is there a motion to approve this calendar?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Any discussion?
Well, we had talked about putting the strategic planning at least twice a year on the yearly calendar, which
Oh,
is not
that
there.
should be on here. Yeah, you're right. Actually, you know what, Michelle, Bob is right about that. Should be on there for twice a year.
Yeah, I can amend it and send it out.
Okay, so you want to amend the motion by adding the strategic planning? I didn't see that, but yeah.
Right, because that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
Do you know which months you would do that?
Well, probably coincide with the mid-year review to make sure that,
That we're on target.
yeah,
Is that July?
probably the end of June, early July. But I mean, I haven't even talked about it with Bob, because he's been traveling, so it's something we need to discuss too. But I mean, the point is to have this whole meeting and see how it goes.
Yeah, I would just note that I totally accept the calendar. I will be traveling most of the month of March and probably not able to participate. I find when I'm in foreign countries, complying with the Brown Act and open media requirements and things like that, while I can technically do it, it's just not clear to me that that's in the spirit of what we should be doing as a public agency. So I may or may not participate by phone in March, depending on which country I'm in.
Okay. But you're okay with the current calendar, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just be aware that I probably won't be able to participate in March, and I do not expect you to change the March date because I'm going to be gone most of the month. So, okay.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
Any other discussions or comments?
Can
Okay.
I just,
Yes, Chuck.
I would like to specify that if we approve the calendar, it's with you setting the strategic planning meeting dates whenever you see fit. Is that?
Well, it's
That's
probably,
right.
I
Well-
haven't even had a chance to talk to Bob, but right now it's.
Well, usually it would coincide with the semi-annual evaluation. So that would be July and probably
At the end of
October,
the
November.
year. Yeah, November, December.
At least to give enough work time other than,
Correct.
Right.
yeah.
I'm just
So
trying to find a
looking at
way that. that
July
we can
and
create-
November, how's that, Michelle? July and November? Great.
I mean, if we
The
need
first
to add
Tuesday.
another meeting, we could always do that, call
Right,
another
right.
meeting.
The first Tuesday of July, November?
That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Chuck?
I just wanted to be clear what we were voting on, so she knew.
Okay, thank you. Okay, to call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone?
President Crowley, I'm sorry, I need to take a 5-minute break.
Okay,
to
take
do-
break. Thank you.
To do my switch.
Thanks.
Come on, you got one of those.
Somebody else to do
How's
this.
your, how's your navigation?
Camera.
Get us